Zack Snyder recently referred to his cut of Justice League as a one-shot watch of a movie, leading some to believe that it is no longer also going to be a 4-part series on HBO Max. But all of this talk points to a much larger marketing problem that we're going to break down right now.
Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell back with another edition of the Snyder Cut series that we're doing here on CinemaBlend. And by we, I mean, of course, video team leader Hannah Saulic. Hi, Hannah. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm really good. How are you?
Good.
Really great? Good.
We are breaking down all of the questions that we have regarding the marketing for Zack Snyder's Justice League that is theoretically coming to HBO Max in March. And I say theoretically because we don't have a release date, and we don't know what format this is coming in, and we don't know when or how people are going to be able to absorb this film. Is it only on streaming services? Is it potentially going to be in theaters? Is it a 4-hour cut? Is it multiple episodes that are stretched at 1 hour?
I have so many questions.
And when Zack tries to give hints to people in the movement, they are equally confusing. And so we figured we would use this week's segment to break it all down.
On Vero, Snyder posted a photo that I'll throw up here, and a fan asked if it was a series or a one-shot, referring to his Snyder Cut, and Snyder just said one-shot. And then everyone took that to mean that we are no longer getting a 4-part series like it was announced at DC Fandom.
4 parts, 1 hour each.
But are instead just getting like the 4-hour movie as is. And to clarify, at Fandom, Zack said that it will be a 4-part series, but then they will find a way to
Bundling it together at the end.
So, John, you have some interesting perspective on that, where you don't necessarily agree that you think this means that it's just like a one-and-done movie and we're not going to get it in this 4-part format.
I don't at the moment. I think that Zack can still view it as one shot, but that one shot is still getting broken up into 4 parts. Like what it might theoretically mean. And again, I know that we're adding to the speculation the way that anybody else did on social media.
Other breaking news. Water. Wet.
Is just that the episodes aren't going to necessarily have like conclusions that cut off. They'll just kind of end. And that when it's all together, it's Zack's complete vision of one shot, but that HBO Max may still decide to divide it up into 4 1-hour segments. The reason why this is so frustrating is because we're close enough now to the supposed release date of this cut that these are things that we shouldn't be debating. Like this stuff should be out there. And this is why we, are calling this video a marketing problem that Warner Brothers and HBO Max seem to have, because I don't quite understand. Even if you tell me that streaming projects tend to ramp up their marketing closer to the release date, I think that the Zack Snyder's Justice League has more of an uphill climb to educate people in terms of what it is. And there's no reason not to be starting this marketing push right now, so that at the very least we could tell as a fan base whether it's going to be a 4-hour complete film or 4 1-hour segments.
Mother of God! Would you look at the time? When you came here, you had an hour. Now it's less.
You were really excited when we found out that it was going to be more of a series. Do you want to kind of elaborate on why for a second?
I think, yeah, sure. Coming off of everything that we got to experience through The Mandalorian and what WandaVision has been able to do so far is a show that makes you wait for an hour, keeps everybody focused on the same page. It creates conversation that the fandom can have with themselves in online media, and it helps ramp up positive word of mouth for people who are really digging it, to pull people in. Not just those 2 Disney Plus shows, but Watchmen managed to do this over the course of its run. People were so fired up about what was going to be coming next, they started to tune in. Lovecraft Country, to a certain extent, also benefited from that too. When you do a binge, something like Cobra Kai, which is a Netflix series that drops all of its episodes, they might have a splash or a big blip on the radar, but then they disappear. And I just think that sustaining conversation is kind of vital to the success of this show, movie, still don't know what to call it.
An anomalous object.
And I want people to be able to dissect it. I want people to be able to analyze what they watched. And doing that episode by episode over the course of a week is a stronger way to do it.
A human being can only absorb so much.
And I think too, like, For people who still think that Zack Snyder's Justice League is just a longer version of what we saw in 2017, meaning people who aren't in the fandom, I think it's going to be really hard to get those people to commit to like a 4-hour sit down of a movie that they think they've already seen 2 hours of.
I'm not gonna drink it.
And I know that the Snyder Cut is for Zack Snyder's fans, so maybe that's not even really a concern of HBO Max's or Zack Snyder's, but I just have a hard time believing that they would make that choice.
Well, I'm confused by so many of their choices, to be honest with you.
You lunatics better know what you're doing.
You have to raise awareness in the general audience because, as you said, we're seeing this on social media. There is legit confusion from people who are just like, why are we getting another Justice League? Like, that movie was horrible. And as hard as that is for us to believe, you know, because we're so immersed in this, there's plenty of people who don't understand what's going on, and they need to kind of know what this is.
Especially when you factor in the fact that BVS's theatrical release was also butchered. There's a large critical reception of like, why would we care about this when BVS was terrible and Justice League was terrible?
People hate what they don't understand.
And the less that they say stuff, the more confusion it causes, because there's people coming off of a Wonder Woman movie, you know, that to them they just saw a couple of weeks ago, and now they're seeing Gal Gadot back in another. And like, wouldn't you even just as a company want to capitalize on that?
Right.
Wouldn't you be like, hey, you just enjoyed Wonder Woman
Here's more
1984,
Wonder
unless your
Woman.
name is Hannah Saulic. Yeah, here's more of Gal Gadot in this character that you enjoy, in a different format. So yes, I think that that's really confusing. But getting over the hump of just the fact that they haven't started marketing this 100% fully, let's chalk it up to the fact that, because maybe even still, since we don't know a release date, the movie comes at the end of March, right? So then middle of January would be too soon to start advertising this. We've got time.
Not enough.
You'd make people feel a lot better if you just told us that it's the end of March, that the date is going to be March 27th. And so, hey, chill out till March 1st. I don't understand at all why the date of this is still a mystery.
What were your thoughts when Godzilla vs. Kong got moved to March?
Them moving Godzilla and King Kong up until the end of March led me to believe that the Snyder Cut was going to be more the beginning of March, because I didn't see why those two would necessarily compete against each other. But again, if we knew the date, then these questions would be unnecessary.
Then I'll ask the obvious question.
Do you think any of this has to do with what's going on with Ray Fisher?
I don't. I think that there's truly a marketing plan in place for this.
The great plan.
Oh. I have even heard some stuff regarding the fact that they are planning a junket for this. Like that there's press days in play for this.
Wow.
But there's been no confirmation, like no hard and fast confirmation. So I truly just feel like, I know that's a little bit more of a bigger conspiracy theory of like, oh, Warner Brothers doesn't want to do anything right now because of the Ray Fisher story. I think it's more in line of they didn't want to take away from Wonder Woman 1984's release. And truly, this past weekend was the first time that Wonder Woman 1984 came out of the #1 spot at the box office at theaters. So Warner Brothers does still sort of feel like they're marketing the Wonder Woman sequel. And maybe they just don't want to start on a new DC project until we get completely out of the shadow of that movie.
Can't say goodbye.
But if that's the case, then I kind of feel like it's a studio cutting off its nose to spite its face.
Our energy reserves were exhausted. What would you have us do?
I kind of think that they need us, Hannah, to go out there and explain to them what the difference is. They need somebody to go forward and say early on, whether it's Zack or someone who goes on a major platform, you know, and sort of says to the mainstream audiences, hey, I know that this seems weird, but because there was a Justice League movie in 2017, but that wasn't the right one. We actually have a much longer one, you know, that's more in line with my vision. And if that just becomes the party line that gets pushed out there, then I think that picks the curiosity of people who are like, oh, I would want to see a director's true vision. I'd want to see. And, you know, it wouldn't hurt to have some of the stars come out like Ben and Jason and say like, oh yeah, like we did this with Snyder. This is his vision. If you like these DC characters, like this is the way to go. This is the one you want to see. Just spend a couple of weeks, you know, beating that drum and letting people know that it's coming. I personally just don't think you can do any of that too soon. I think the idea of letting people know that it's coming is super important, and I'm deeply concerned as to why. Like, even this second trailer.
Where is it? Curious myself.
I wonder if that trailer is going to be more positioned, because the first trailer was very much like for the fans.
Yes.
And most critics who are outside the fandom were like, we already saw this. Like, okay, why is everybody so excited? So I wonder if the second trailer is really going to try to appeal to a broader audience, or if Zack's just really like, you know what, I don't care, this is for the fans.
I would like it to appeal to a more broad audience. And that DC Fandom trailer, correct me if I'm wrong, came out in August. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Like, I've gone back and watched it a ton of times, but the mainstream audience certainly has not. You know, like, you kind of alerted them to the fact that, like, a Snyder Cut is coming in August, and we're coming up on 6 months from then.
Yeah.
And there's been nothing.
No internet, no satellite coverage.
I mean, like, you see headlines about it from, like, us, like, CinemaBlend and, like, other, like, competitors, but it's not really, like, in the conversation as, like, oh, this is coming in March, like, this is a big release kind of a thing, whereas it should be.
I agree.
Well, so then let's flip the script. Like, let's ask ourselves why that hasn't happened yet, right? Like, the takeaway would be that the studio doesn't necessarily want it to succeed. And I don't want to go down the negative path, but if they wanted it to do really well, they would be out front sort of championing it.
They don't know how to honor him.
Since they're not, you kind of step back and you think like, oh, then you sort of want this to be a one and done.
Yeah.
Which worries me, because I think that, like, so many people, and this goes back to a little bit where I said, like, maybe we just need to accept the fact that getting the cut is the win. That they are really just saying, here's the cut.
Here it is,
that's
go away.
it. You got it. You got it. Yeah, exactly. Now come back for all the things we're going to bring to theaters. Oh, that's another good component. Let's get into that for a little bit. Maybe they truly are trying to figure out if there's going to be a theatrical component to it. And that's just not something that they're able to answer right now.
Hurry it up, will ya?
But I think Zack really wants a theater component. And so maybe he's still negotiating that possibility. I don't know.
I could see that.
I do not know.
That
I
would
can see
make
that too.
sense. I still don't think it fixes their larger marketing problem, unfortunately.
No. And again, I want to give them credit that if they hit the ground running come February 1st,
Sure.
and it's a month-long marketing blitz leading into it, then I'm sorry. You know, I'll give you permission to take this video down.
No, we won't. We'll just
But
get
right
yelled at.
now, you're not doing enough. You're hardly doing anything at all. And it's been encouraging to see the fans say, like, we don't need them, we'll do it.
Right.
You don't have to. You shouldn't have to
They've
do
done
it.
enough, Sean.
Yes.
Thank you is not enough what you did.
And that's one of the things that Zack told me in the book, where he went to the marketing teams at Warner Brothers and was pointing at the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut campaign and was saying, look what these guys have done that you guys can't even manage to do.
But I was running the numbers while you were being an asshole.
Yeah.
Like in 2019, the number one talked about movie coming out of San Diego Comic-Con was the Snyder Cut. And like, according to data analysis of like projects that made a splash at 2019. And Zack went around to the marketing department at Warner Brothers and he was like, the number one movie at Comic-Con is a movie that you guys don't even plan to release. And so if you don't hire these guys to be in your marketing department, you're foolish, because they're doing it for free and they're
Yes.
doing better than you guys are.
How many of you are there?
And I think, like,
They shouldn't have to anymore.
no, and I sometimes, I think, take for granted how important film marketing is because I'm immersed in it every day. So I'm like, I know every single thing that's coming out because that's my job. But then I'll like go talk to a friend or somebody who's outside of this world and they're like, what is that? I've never heard of it. And I'm like,
Are you effing stupid?
No. No, what am I?
like, most people aren't immersed in this conversation every single day. So if you don't get it in
Right.
front of people's eyeballs, they're just not going to watch it.
No, I know. So my takeaway then ends up being HBO Max right now doesn't seem like they're very concerned whether you watch it or not.
Yeah.
And that's discouraging. Because they could very easily just give us a couple of key things that would really start, like, you know that this fan base thrives off of just, you know, crumbs of information. And if you gave them...
You could give them
date
like March
and-
1X or something and they would be like ecstatic.
Right, exactly. And just the format, you know, like,
Yeah.
get ready for four weeks of nonstop Zack Snyder Justice League conversation.
When are you gonna throw me a bone?
I really hope that that's still happening.
You want the series.
I want both.
Yeah, and you'll get both. And there's going to be collector's edition versions of it that people can own in physical media. Like, I firmly believe all of this is happening.
I think fans will be happy no matter what, and I think that's great. I'm just really worried about, like, I want the next layer of people to be excited about it.
What is there to wish for but more?
Well, let me ask why.
I honestly do not think, and I don't know that I want to say this because I'll get yelled at, but I don't think you're going to get more Snyderverse unless the Snyder Cut reaches people beyond the fan base. I just don't.
Get out.
That's probably true. But here's the thing that's hidden inside of that, too. Streaming services don't ever really give us their numbers. Like,
True.
They can decide whether this is a hit or a bomb on their own, and we would never really know. But I understand what you're saying. It's easier to point at a film that's dominating the conversation in the culture. You know, if multiple articles are being written about it, if there's a lot of theory pieces that get picked up, if it becomes water cooler topic, then it's harder to turn around to say to HBO Max, like, oh, it didn't do well. Like, no, it dominated, and people really want to talk about it and give the fans more of that. That's what it kind of needs to do, I think.
Yeah.
I think. And at a 4-hour blop, I'm not quite sure it's going to do that. I think it's going to come and go, and the people who love to see it will watch it, but it's not going to permeate the conversation.
Yeah. And I want it to.
How many broadcasting signals can I take over at once?
Well, should we end things on a positive note?
No,
Or
not
should we
this
just
week.
keep
I'm
yelling
mad.
at HBO Max?
Sure, let's do that.
Well,
What's positive? What
It's
can we celebrate?
positive. We still might get both. No matter what, we're still getting a 4-hour cut. That's always the takeaway.
Right.
The power of positive thinking.
And I stand by the fact that if, once we get back into theaters, whether it's this summer or into the fall, that Zack will take some kind of a rolling road show where he brings the 4-hour cut of the Snyder Cut to theaters. And why wouldn't he? God, we've seen Marvel program all 23 films leading into the Infinity Saga. Why wouldn't he do a full day of Man of Steel BVS Ultimate Edition and the 4-hour Snyder Cut?
Have you guys seen what's going on outside?
So hopefully, like Hannah said, some more positive news will come back around. But until then, make sure you guys keep it right here for our weekly breakdown of all things Zack Snyder's Justice League, all things Snyder Cut, and keep it on CinemaBlend for all your entertainment needs.